Another interesting story, rhino poaching is surging across Africa as tourism and crucial funding plunge. Conservation areas can no longer afford to pay security and park rangers to protect the vulnerable animals. This comes, of course, as coronavirus cases increase across the continent. Our Debora Patta takes a closer look.
As many African nations have battened down the hatches and gone into lockdown, there are growing fears that poaching could be on the increase in some countries. And to make matters worse, the entire wildlife tourism industry has come to a standstill. National stay-at-home orders, travel bans and other measures put in place to stop the spread of the coronavirus have severely constricted Africa's $39 billion tourism industry. In addition to probable job losses, the other tragedy is that this business helps fund wildlife conservation across the continent. A rhino rescue organization in South Africa is responding to at least one rhino poaching incident a day since this country went into lockdown, and in neighboring Botswana, usually one of the most protected places for wildlife, there have been at least 6 rhinos poached since that country closed its borders. While poaching is not unusual on this continent, the recent incidents in Botswana and South Africa were out of the ordinary because they occurred in tourism hotspots that until now were considered relatively safe havens for wildlife. Usually this time of the year, these reserves would be full of tourists, and as a result, the animals are not only protected by rangers, but by the presence of visitors as well. In the East African country of Kenya, there are fears that the collapse of the tourism industry there could result in massive layoffs of staff, which in turn would also threaten the protection of wildlife. But there is some good news in all of this. In South Africa, conservationists and rangers are deemed essential workers. And whilst poaching may be on the increase in some parts of the country, in South Africa's biggest game reserve, the government-owned Kruger National Park, where anti-poaching patrols continue as normal, the slaughter of rhinos has actually decreased since the national lockdown. Debora Patta, CBS News, Johannesburg, South Africa.